Hello. These are my two hopper models. My design goal is to have a hopper that can hop variable heights that can be set by the user. In my sketch model, I imagined this would be done using this plunger mechanism on the center rod, where it can slide through and then stay in place to provide tension so that the suction cup travels different distances to reach the ground. I originally implemented that in my prototype with a center rod that traveled through with a suction cup on the bottom, and I used foam blocks to achieve the squishing through the hole and then compressing to allow it to be set to variable heights. However, when I implemented that, I discovered that the foam blocks were not as sturdy as I had expected, and that when compressed, they simply broke apart and did not serve my purpose very well. So my first iterative process of my hopper was to discover a new way to make that design goal feasible. And the way I did that was through adding extra Delrin blocks on my latex tubing so that it can be set into different positions. And basically latex tubing is different lengths so that it's stretched different lengths and therefore a different amount of energy is stored. This works quite well. The only problem is that in my design goal I specified that I wanted the difference in height to be at least 10 centimeters. However, the hopper doesn't hop high enough to make 10 centimeters a reasonable distance. So that is one part of my design goal that I'm still working on, to have 10 centimeters different between the two height settings. The other important iterative process of my hopper is the trigger mechanism. Originally, in my sketch model, I imagined a suction cup. I discovered quite quickly in my prototype that a suction cup was simply not strong enough under the amount of tension that I was putting the latex tubing. It's sort of a conundrum in that if I want my hopper to hop a reasonable distance, I have to have the latex tubing under a lot of tension. But if the latex tubing is under a lot of tension, my triggers don't function properly. They're under too much tension. So my suction cup didn't hold because of all the tension. So I decided to try a bottle rocket launcher mechanism where I had a launcher strung between two legs and a hook on this rod so that it would come down and hook onto it. And then when the launcher was ignited, it would burn apart and the wires would separate, releasing the hook and releasing the tension. However, that didn't work because when I hooked it, again, it was under so much tension that the hook simply broke the bottle rocket launcher wire immediately without ever having it lit. So my most recent mechanism was to put a simple piece of music wire in between and put a less strong piece of wire hook here, such as the bottle rocket hook, which is thin and bendable, so that when it pulled down, it would hook onto it, and then as the wire was under tension, it would unhook and unbend and release. However, again, like the other two, it was under so much tension that it unbent and released immediately. The other problems I'm working on is, of course, that it doesn't hop very high. I'm planning to fix this by reducing the mass. Currently, my hopper weighs 112 grams, which is quite a lot for a hopper, and I think that's part of why it doesn't hop very high. I plan to reduce the mass in my final iteration by cutting holes in all the extra Delrin pieces. And also, I've been playing with the idea of creating a triangular basis instead of circular basis, so that it would have 3 legs instead of 4. If it had 3 legs, then it would always stand steady because 3 points form a plane. And currently, sometimes the legs are wobbly because there's 4 legs, so it's hard to get them all to be exactly the same length. So my plans for the future are, of course, to reduce the mass by changing the shape of the base, which would also remove a leg, so that would lose mass, or by cutting holes in it, to find a working trigger mechanism, and so that my hopper succeeds in my design goal of hopping 2 variable distances with at least 10 centimeters between the distances. So now we can look at some videos of it hopping. See, that's much more